trial of Richard Allen, it is set to begin in Delphi. It's going to be a fascinating one, and one with very few voices because there's only so many seats in the courtroom, and you can't tweet and you can't report from there, and you can't have any devices. So, our friend Bob Motta is going to be there on the ground with one of these. It's a notepad, as you may remember. This is what we used to write on prior to digital devices. It's like you're going back to 1985, Bob. But you're going to be there on the ground. What are you expecting as we get into this case?
Chaos. I think it's gonna be absolute chaos. I mean, there's going to be a huge amount of people trying to get into that courthouse, and it is going to be I'm sad because she's not allowing it to be streamed because it's gonna be a trial for the ages. It's really it's a true whodunit, and it's going to be hard fought by both sides. And ultimately, we're hoping to end up with the truth at the end of this thing. But it's been such a wild ride leading up to the trial itself that it's hard to know if that's going to happen. I mean, you and I have talked about this many, many, many times,
Yeah.
and it's just been like a pre-trial procedural case unlike any that I've ever seen. And I've been a part of crazy cases leading up to trial that were high publicity, but man, this thing was next level. And I mean, even now they're like leading up to trial
Hmm.
next week. They're filing motions in limine. They're firing them out. And I expect it to be a hell of a trial. I really do.
Let's talk about some of what's been going on here in the days leading up to it. I want to hear about those motions in a second, but I want to talk about Todd Click and his arrest. Todd Click, one of the original officers on this case, one of the first ones to talk about the Odinism, to talk about, hey, there might be something going on over here, guys. One of the few to actually do that. And right before the trial, and right before he's supposed to be one of their star witnesses, he's arrested and he's charged with crimes that have nothing to do with this case, largely paperwork type crimes, falsifying information in his role as a DCS family case manager. Basically, if you're to read the tea leaves, this seems like they're trying to discredit him right before the trial. So, what is he's falsifying stuff over there. Why would we believe anything that this man has to say? At least that's the
Exactly.
conspiracy angle, but it seems to be more factual than it does conspiracy these days.
Yeah, no, I think it appears that he was in fact slacking. I mean, this basically boils down to a guy who was longtime cop who had taken a position over at DCS, which according to people that I've spoken with, is a pretty decent job.
Hmm.
It's not like it was a throwaway job, but he just wasn't feeling it. Now this happens. He took that job after his involvement in the Delphi investigation. So, there was that period of time for 2017 until the time that Craig Ferenczi, who was one of the other officers that was investigating the Odinist angle and these other individuals, was shot and killed in front of a federal building.
Hmm.
Many have speculated that could be involved with this case somehow. Who
Yeah.
knows? It's hard to say that it wasn't. It's hard to say that it was. I don't know enough about it. But the timing is interesting here, and really kind of when the report came in that he had failed to actually do interviews that he was claiming that he had done in terms of going out to the house to do interviews where there had been reports that had been lodged against either parents or complaints that were made. And he's got to go out to the house and he's got to see with his own eyes and talk to the participants and the family members to see what's going on out there. That actually, we have multiple witnesses saying, I've never seen this guy. He never came out here. And same with some phone calls. So those seem to be legitimate.
Hmm.
Now, in terms of like when this kind of starts to brew up, it's unusual in the sense that it seems like somebody said, hey, maybe we want to take a look at this guy, because it was about a month after Frank's hit that they started looking into Click. So that's like September of 2022, is it, or September of 2023? I think.
Yeah.
They start digging into Click, and it took them, I guess, like they would argue, look, that's how long our investigation took. And So they make the arrest, they effectuate the arrest about, 12 days before trial. And again, I mean, the reality is that I don't know if they were going to call Click anyway
Hmm.
at this point, because she has flame thrown the third party culprit
Yeah.
aspect of this defense. So I don't know what they would have been able to put him on for anyway. But in terms of the perception of the defense team in the public's eye, it's it's not, it's just another bad look for them. They're like, oh, so yeah, here's that cop that you were, writing 136 page memos about. Look at what kind of guy you're dealing with here. You're dealing with the guy who had young children at risk because he wasn't doing his job,
Hmm.
who was lying. You can't trust him. So I mean, even if he wasn't going to be testifying, the impact that it has on the public in terms of their view of these lawyers that are handling this case, it's just another blight. Whether real or not, the perception from the general public who doesn't know any better in terms of what's going on in terms of defending that case, from the outside looking in, it makes them look bad.
Yeah.
So, which is always a move. It's
Hmm.
always a move, for the prosecution in cases like this, to attack on every front, and it's going to be to feed information to the press about the defendant and give information out there so that the media can run with it, and look, they want this, whatever their theory of the case is going to be, they want that put out there for public consumption so that people are reaching a decision as to guilt or innocence prior to trial. And you get a prosecutor on here, they'll deny that they do that all day long,
Hmm.
but just look at it. Yeah, if you have any common sense, you know what's going on with that. And it's no different when they're going after the attorneys in a high profile case.
Yeah.
So anything that's going to put them in a light or cast a light on them that makes them less than stellar in
Hmm.
terms of like who they're relying on for their witnesses and their theory is always going to be helpful to the state. So
Yeah.
whether or not Click is going to test or Click was going to testify or not really doesn't matter in terms of how much coverage did this seemingly collateral case that has nothing to do with Delphi in and of itself, how much coverage did that get up in Allen County, Indiana, where
Hmm.
they're selecting the jury? Was that on the news, on every news station? Was it in the press? Was it in the paper every day for a week? And did all those potential jurors read about it?
Hmm.
So I mean, that's really where it's going to impact the trial.
Yeah. Let's talk about another key piece in this filing that was put out there this week before the trial's about to begin. The defense wanting to call Keegan Klein to the stand to refresh your memory on who Keegan Klein is. Even before Richard Allen was arrested and charged with the deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German, they were looking at Keegan Klein, and for good reason too. He was online under the name Anthony Shots on social media, luring in young girls under a false persona. Klein contacted numerous underage girls and then manipulated them into sending him sexually explicit images and video. He's been sentenced to 43 years in prison after pleading guilty to 25 felony counts there. There's also allegations that he was supposed to meet with one of the girls the very day of the disappearance. Gee, that's not suspicious at all. Gee, maybe we should look at him a little bit more. Not the CVS worker, but of course, that all went to hell. But they're requesting that him as a witness in this trial. What do you make of this? How do you think Judge Gull is going to handle this? Because this actually could be a pretty good defense to introduce reasonable doubt for Richard Allen.
Yeah, it can. And to be honest with you, I thought that Klein was on the list of can't do's. Like
Hmm.
I know that like in the state's motion to eliminate to ace the Odins and all the Odin talk and all of the ritualistic murder talk and all of those five individuals that they had named. I thought Ron Logan and Keegan Klein were included in
I
that
did
list.
too. Yeah.
But I think what may have happened is that there was there for the state's forensic phone guy was doing one final uh, updated Cellubrite extraction on Libby's phone, which the last time that we were in the hearings back in August for that 3 days of hearings,
Hmm.
I think it was the end of July, early August, he had stated that I'm hoping to get this report to the defense by, I think it was like August 13th. And maybe, just maybe, they found something in those reports that is a connection between Klein and this, or that Anthony Shots account and Libby's phone, which certainly would be a nexus. That
Yeah.
that would be something that there's I don't know how Gull would keep that out, because if that's not a nexus to the crime, I don't know what is. If they found communications between him drawing the girls up to the bridge that day, um, that would be pretty smoking gun evidence, and that certainly would qualify as a nexus to the homicide.
I would think that
So
would change the whole case.
yeah,
When if we find that he was, yeah, luring them out there that day. He says, "I never intended to do anything or meet with them. I was just, yeah." I mean, tell that to everybody that Chris Hansen meets. You know, it's,
well, Tony, at the hearing, it was kind of mind blowing because they went pretty in depth in decline at their third party
yeah,
culprit hearing, very in depth, to the extent where it came out that Klein had basically sold his old man, Tony Klein, like sold him out
mhm,
completely. And he had said that they had driven a red Jeep down to the bridge, that his father got out of the vehicle, was gone for a couple of hours, and came back and he was muddy and bloody. And that they then drove over the bridge, and that's when they tossed the knife and the cell phone into the Wabash River, which ultimately law enforcement thought enough of it to drag that river.
yeah,
So, but what came out also that at that hearing is that law enforcement said that, they went to the cameras that they knew were in the area, the same ones that have seen vehicles coming and going, and that they were never able to place that red Jeep coming or going. The defense brought up, well, there's ways into Logan's property through the cemetery that wouldn't be caught on camera.
mhm,
So I mean, they're obviously going for it,
yeah,
and if they have that phone connection, if they have that data from the phone that puts them anywhere in terms of contacting Libby and drawing them out to the bridge that day, it's very interesting
yeah,
because the state came back during that hearing and said, look, well, both their phones were at the residence. So, but who gives a shit?
yeah,
Like, what about burners, man? It's like that means nothing. They could have had their phones because they're not idiots. They left those at the house
yeah,
and they're operating with burners, or they don't bring their phones,
yeah,
which is, if you're going to be committing heinous crimes, it's advisable not to bring your cellular device with you, because
yeah,
it's literally you're on the grid. It's a
yeah,
tracking device. It's going to, you're caught.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be really interesting. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Like, this is not going to be a defense where they're just going to rest.
Yeah.
They are going to be putting a lot of evidence on, and it's going to be really interesting.
Have come this far. Hopefully, they can get their case out there, and the
Yep.
jury can hear
At
it.
least some semblance of it. I mean,
Yeah,
look, they're going to attack the timeline.
yeah,
There's no question about that. They're going to attack the investigation. There's no question about that. And they're going to try as much as they can to get as much reasonable doubt in there by pointing the finger at other people, as much as Gull will let them get in.
yeah,
So it'll be a heck of a trial, and then you've got to balance that against there's going to be this war on these confessions that's going on. And I don't know if you saw it because you were probably working all morning, but the most recent motion that came out today was a motion where they were asking the court to certify Monica Walla, who was the prison psychologist or
hmm,
psychiatrist that was treating Richard Allen back when he was in Westville, the
hmm,
first prison he was at, and who was the doctor who was treating him when he was going through that psychotic break, when he
yeah,
was eating his own feces and
yeah,
running into the cinder brick wall with his head, and made all these confessions during this 3-month period of time.
yeah,
She was the doctor. Apparently, after that hearing, when she testified, unbeknownst to the defense, she lost her job, which doesn't surprise me based on some of her answers
mhm,
on the stand that day. But apparently, she actually lives in Cook County, and that makes her an out of state witness. They believe that the information that she has is material, so they're asking the judge to certify her as a material witness,
mhm,
making it easier for them to be able to issue those out of state subpoenas and haul her back to court in Indiana.
Yeah.
So that was filed today. So it's got all the earmarks for a real war in there, man.
Yeah. It's going to be super fascinating to watch. You're going to be in the courtroom fighting people in the morning. No, I'm taking that seat. Fight a valiant fight, my friend. I can't
I
wait
shall.
to hear
I
it.
shall.
All right, Bob Motta, defense attorney, podcast Defense Diaries, and we'll hear more from you all week from the courtroom. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.